Hold on.
Can you set that up?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, everyone who's entering, please put your name and where you teach in the chat, and we'll start soon.
I love seeing where everyone's from. Oh, I better mute.
Do you care if I
Put it anywhere.
do
you
that?
want. Yeah, move it around.
And then Fran.
Oh, hi, Fran. Hi.
Stafford, my next door neighbor. I'm in Wellington. Philadelphia. Nice.
Yeah, nice.
Sherman. I feel like this is as close to Instagram Live as I've ever been.
This is pretty much
I
it.
don't think I've done. We haven't done like a Facebook Live or Instagram Live.
We haven't done much. We also haven't done much together in a while.
Maybe
which
that's
should be
what it
interesting.
is.
Yeah, I feel like I've done this 50 million times. You have too, but I don't think we've done it
together with like a live.
Yeah.
Honored.
I have to say, it makes me feel nervous. Both because I still want to impress Maggie Roberts, but also because I don't want to do anything wrong, so that I don't want to get in a fight after because I talk too much. So if participants, if you could just in the chat box be like, Kate, like you've been talking so long. Look at your wife's face. He's very angry at you.
It's so true. It's like, friends, this is basically as close to a date night that
This
we've
is it.
had
We haven't done anything together.
in 4 months, 3.
I should light a candle. I should have prepared for this.
There's still time.
Hi, Mary. Hi, Brent. Oh, it's so nice to see
man,
everybody.
I missed you all. There's Brent. Torrington.
Oh,
So much
Sarah.
love
Hi,
for you
Sarah.
all.
it's so great.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom. Right down the street. You should just come over. You can watch it here. You can sit in our room.
You can corral the children
Yeah.
from coming up.
I think
Tom,
I
come
think
over.
you should say Tom's last name.
I feel like I have practiced it.
Tom, the best director of curriculum ever. That's his last name.
That works.
Thanks. I thought so. I thought that's how you pronounced it. Yay.
Give it another minute.
Yeah, I'd love to see like it'd be fun if you could do like, sometime we'll be tech savvy where we could do like instant surveys. Like I'd like to see like how many people have screaming children in the background, barking dogs, grumpy partners, or a video game on the background waiting to play, or your eyes are kind of up here. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna listen. This is great. Which is personally my favorite part about all this distance learning is I'm like, ooh, I can play my game and learn at the same time. This is great. And on the treadmill, Sarah, impressive.
I mean, that's amazing.
And putting away laundry.
Yes, I mean,
exactly.
it has, in some ways, I feel very efficient.
That's right.
And in some ways not.
Right.
It's just a
It's
land of
either
extremes.
or, right? I'm either so efficient that I'm doing everything at once
Yeah.
and it's amazing, or I'm doing absolutely nothing and laying on the ground feeling sad and lost.
So weird. It is so true.
Yeah.
With children crawling over you.
Crawling, pouncing, jumping as hard as they can on me. Yeah.
Yes, and Kathy, I don't know if you know, but we decided to get a puppy like right before this thing happened,
Really smart.
Oh,
which has actually been quite fantastic.
I'm
But
gonna
we
show
have
pictures.
a huge 7-month-old
He's massive.
puppy. They didn't tell us that he was probably going to be 90 pounds at full.
what is he?
He's a golden doodle.
I'm gonna find a really
Oh.
I know
Boy, they're
dogs
wild
came for a
unless they're
webinar, but we're just going to show you pictures of dogs. So hope that's good. Put your
they
laundry
are
down.
wild. They're wild.
And that's been a nice added
It's added something.
Added element to the Roberts family household.
There's just
Were
a
you trying to teach your kids responsibilities? Oh,
I mean,
so
look at that puppy
cute.
dog. Look at that puppy dog. Oh
What's
my
his name?
Duke.
Duke.
Which the boys named him when I asked them once hypothetically if we would get a puppy, what would they name him? And the eldest was like, Duke. Like, obviously. I was like, great. Name the dog that you don't know you're getting.
Yeah.
Which is great, except that, of course, they're little kids, so they insist on calling him Dookie.
Oh, yes. Do they get their vowels right?
They do.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
But
I'm just like, I just all of a sudden was just like, there's just so many references we could do with that. We could go Green Day.
Green Day.
Okay.
But, like, luckily they don't know, because they are, of course, they're 5 and 3.
Yeah.
They're obsessed with poop. Welcome to the webinar, everybody.
Yeah.
So they're obsessed with it. So luckily they don't know that that word means
they
that,
never
because
need
otherwise
to know.
that would be all they
They
said
never
all
need
the
to know.
time.
It's going to be in the vault
Forever.
Thanks, Mary.
All right.
You gotta
Are we
love it.
ready?
You got a dog too.
I did get a dog. We adopted a dog 2 weeks ago. And yep, he's a 3-year-old Labrador. He's 80 pounds. And he runs faster than a bullet. And he's so strong, he breaks out of his collars and he chases deer down and he passes the deer. He passes deer and turns around to get him, and then he confronts him. And we're like, oh my God. So he needs some training.
Yeah, I know.
Training
Same.
would be nice. Training would be
Same.
nice. You would
But,
think since we're home all the time that we would train
It's
him.
very low on the priority list
there's
right
not-
now.
No. And
Anyway.
I said, that's how I got the dog, by saying that we're trainers.
Oh, good.
Oh my God, this is live.
Okay, yes.
We do train our dogs.
Oh, yeah. No, all the time. He's amazing. Okay.
All right, we ready?
Kristen, you're first.
Okay, so I'll just start with welcoming everyone. The Connecticut Reading Association welcomes you to, it is called Keeping Connected to Our Work and Each Other Over the Summer with Kate and Maggie Roberts.
Yay.
I'm Kristen Stevens. I run our social media and I do much of the behind the scenes work with a lot of these workshops. I'll be one of the moderators today. You can I'll be helping monitor the things that are going on in the chat. So you can put any questions or comments in the chat and we'll take care of those throughout the workshop. This is the third of our 3-part series for distance learning. If you missed our first 2 workshops, App Smashing with Jeff Spivey and Summer Reading Swimsuit Edition with Rachel Gabriel, you can find those on our YouTube channel that you can find on our website at ctreading.org. I'll put the link in the chat. You can also find information about membership, and you can also find information about upcoming events on our website. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and I'll put the handle in the chat. Thank you so much for being here, and now on to Kathy.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Kathy Grimes, Secretary of Connecticut Reading Association, better known as CRA. Thanks for joining us tonight. There are actually over 180 people here tonight with us, which is amazing. They all signed up, so we're hoping to see more and more pile in. You know, I've just been thinking we all must be feeling the same thing at this day and week right now in our school year, is just relief, a colossal exhale, a huge sigh of relief that we see the light for ourselves and our students. And basically we made it. So I would just say big thumbs up or clapping or woo, because we did it. And CRA wants you to know that your dedication and commitment to Connecticut students is admired and appreciated. We do what we do for our kids. So if you are new to CRA, and I just wanted to let you know that we are a professional literacy organization. We're the state affiliate of the International Literacy Association, better known as ILA, and sponsor leadership and workshop activities designed to support literacy instruction in all Connecticut schools. So CRA's mission is to empower educators, inspire students, and encourage our community to embrace literacy as an essential tool for lifelong success. For those of you who aren't members yet, we really hope that you would consider joining us. Now, on to why we are all here. Our presenters tonight barely need an introduction, but just in case, CRA welcomes Kate and Maggie Roberts. I cannot tell you how we have admired both of them. They're just been incredible educators over the years. And years ago, not that they're that old, but just done so much in their young professional lives. We've watched them when they were at Teachers College Reading and Writing Project as staff developers who would forge ahead into the school districts to inspire, create, and teach teachers and kids how to be better thinkers and navigators of their own learning. Then they moved on from supporting hundreds and hundreds of teachers to supporting hundreds of thousands of teachers, administrators, everyone really across the world. So they are moms, educators, authors, literacy consultants, presenters, and just real life people. To capture a couple of their tweets, and I hope you guys don't mind. I do follow both of them, and I think it's absolutely hysterical waking up on a Saturday morning and reading Kate's, so it's pretty funny. One is, I don't mean to brag, but I just put my washed clothes away one day after they were washed. So is that not real? Really, right?
That's all we need the webinar to be. That's it. That's it. We're done. That's all I got.
I'm looking at a basket of mine right now, so.
Oh, Kate, but it's not done yet because Kate and Maggie, then there was this one about you wearing soft pants. And honestly, I'll let you guys tell that one, but I am in agreement with the soft pants. It's just nonstop every single day. I'm wondering, like, how many do I own? But CRA members, please join us in welcoming Kate and Maggie.
Yay. Soft pants for the win.
I'm wearing them. I'm never going back. No. For the rest of my career, I will be in soft pants, soft everything. I'm done. I think that's what we've learned.
I feel like we're all comfortable with that. Like we're all in a different place.
We've seen each other's homes. We've seen each other's living rooms, each other's kids, partners, dogs, laundry.
Circles under the eyes.
We don't need, who are we trying to impress, right? We know who we are now.
I mean, I put on makeup tonight because A, you, and B, this is literally Kate and I's first date in
3 months? Yeah. We haven't done anything together.
So I did spruce up just a little bit here for
I didn't. I'm sorry.
I still love you very much.
Thank you
very much.
So I have to say that I just got really moved at the top of this as you were talking, Kathy. Just sort of realizing it hasn't even really occurred to me that we did it, that here we are. We're kind of at this pause point. Most of us are done or almost done. So I just want to take a beat for a moment and first just say thank you. And what I've seen teachers do in the last 3 months is incredible. It is inspiring. It is mythic.
Yeah.
What I've seen my son's teachers do, what I've seen the teachers I work with do. And of course it's hard because none of it feels very satisfying, right? Like none of the work we've done feels like it's connecting in the ways that we know we can connect to our kids. And yet we've done an incredible job. And I am so proud to be a colleague to everyone here and everyone that I've worked with. It's astounding. The topic of this webinar is about staying connected and connecting. And, I'm sure all of you share our feeling in this experience of distance learning. It really highlights the only thing that matters in schools really is the connections we have to each other. And, I know that in schools I work in, where the teachers felt connected to their kids before the pandemic hit, this has gone a lot easier than the colleagues I've worked with who, when this pandemic hit, they didn't feel as connected either because of school culture or et cetera. Watching our son, who's a kindergartner, who's ending his kindergarten year, he needs his teacher. We do our best. Maggie's an incredible kindergarten teacher. I did not know that. She was a middle school teacher in her classroom experience.
It's because of I'm looking at my notes from being in your classrooms.
So
And you all have
yeah.
saved my tail.
It's insane. Like, I'm teaching him and I feel like I know what I'm doing. I've read some K2 books, and like he literally cries and yells at me, "You're horrible at this, Mama. You're a bad teacher." I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. And then I like overhear Maggie as she's working with our son, and it's like magical. But even so, even with magical Maggie teaching him, he needs his teacher. And he needs his classmates.
Yeah.
He needs his school. It's like there's something that's really missing when our kids don't have that in the same way. And so we wanted to spend some time thinking about ways that we can explore this idea of connection across the summer. And, you know, thinking about, we have this opportunity. Okay, here we are. We've ended the year. We did it. We made it through. We duct taped something together, and we did something.
Duct tape works.
It works. We did something with children. And now we are done. But we know, of course, that next year is going to, in some form or another, present us with similar challenges that we faced this year. And so we have this opportunity to not totally abandon our work this summer, to partially abandon our work, to stay connected in a way that allows us to meet that challenge and to come to our kids in August or September ready to go.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share a little ditty here, share a screen.
A ditty would be fun.
I mean, let's see, what do you think, Kate? Should I do this one?
I think that one.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we will share the right. Would you like to do that?
Well, yeah, let me just, because I know the borders here. So you know it's late at night when we narrate what we're doing as we're doing it. Sometimes when I'm smoother, I don't narrate as I'm clicking things. There we go.
So Kate and I started an Instagram.
Oh yeah, we did.
I just decided to put that up for the first time.
It's exciting.
I don't know why it's taken us so long.
Long time.
I feel like this next slide, shows maybe why I started it, because, I wanted to take a moment and just explore connection or define connection, kind of get a sense of what it is, what it isn't. Because in a way, for the last 3 months, I've been the most disconnected I've ever been. You would not have been able to tell me 6 months ago that I would be in the house for 3 months plus with a 5-year-old and 3-year-old and a puppy and a partner who we parent together, we work together. And so the connections in a way got very small, right? It got very kind of insular. And at the same time, the juxtaposition of also being more connected than I've ever been. My phone was with me a lot. I found myself reaching for other community. And when I hear community, I think about connection. And so my phone had the old favorites of Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. But one thing that saved my feelings of connectivity was this new app, Marco Polo, in the beginning, which was like basically you can send video messages back and forth. And I remember we would just end the day
every day. And
the only thing I wanted to do was sit at my kitchen counter, shovel food into my face, and just watch Marco Polos because they were voices of connection, of friends. I am proud to say that I have fully embraced TikTok. I have found some community there. And I think that I encourage you, when I made this slide for me, when I thought about what is connection, that's where I went in my mind. I was like, well, in a way I've not been connected at all, but in a way I have been connected more than I ever have. So I'd love to give you 2 minutes just to think through some of these questions, right? What is connection? What does it mean to be connected? When do connections help us? When do they hurt us? When do connections push us forward in the work? when do connections hold us back, right? If I think about all these connections, I've also been depressed, to be quite honest, right?
Up and down
in these
day.
ways, right? I'm like more connected than ever, and I'm listening to podcasts, and I'm having Facebook debates, and I'm texting people I haven't texted with in 20 years. And then in the same thing, there's like sometimes this sadness that's taken hold, and I've been leaning into that a little bit personally to say, is it sadness because I really miss the physical connection of being with people? Is there some sadness too, because when we explore connection, there's some really beautiful stuff that happens, but when I've been leaning into harder conversations, pushing myself to connect in issues that I may not have connected with before, it can be revealing and it can hurt sometimes. And so I'm just going to put 90 seconds on the clock for you just to do some of your own thing. I'm going to take the depression slide off just so that that doesn't get screenshot, and that's like what I'm known for. I'm like depressed. And just think a little bit about, what is connection to you? What does it mean to be connected? When has it helped you? When has it hurt you? Come back together in about 15 seconds. So the next 40 minutes, we'll be exploring this connection, right? Staying connected to our work and what that means, staying connected to each other and what that means. And when I think about the connections that, that have kind of fed me, right, in a way, when I think about what are the connections that I seek out or feel like there's some reciprocity in, qualities of a good connection to me in my brainstorm were that they're helpful, that they're honest, right? Like I think that sometimes if I go back to my early days on Twitter, if I just kind of keep that metaphor going, I remember a lot of connections with people, but it was very much at the surface. And I find now, all these years later on Twitter, that my connections with people go quite deep in terms of deeper conversations. And in that, people are able to be honest because there is a thread to follow. There are roots to grow into that connection, even in a digital space. Qualities of a good connection that I'm searching for this summer are ones that are engaging, and that doesn't necessarily mean easy, right? But that keep me wanting to return to my screen, if it's on my phone or if it's in the physical world, wanting to book that next conversation or coffee date. I'm looking for connections that are fulfilling, that are sustainable. One thing I've noticed about myself, I don't know about you, in the last few months was I realized how many connections I had that I had lost along the way. And I find myself needing to return to old connections or keep those connections going, kind of like the end of the night voicemails. Voicemails, I feel like I'm...
When you get paged, when you get a page in the middle of the night.
Like,
are you crank phoning? Is
that like the message machine?
Oh,
like
yeah,
you hear the tape going in the message
That's
machine.
Right.
Oy.
Yep.
Connections that are motivating, you know, as I think about the last couple of weeks, especially some new connections that I've made, some connections that I have put some effort into deepening have really motivated me towards action and doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want these connections to propel me forward in a way that deepen my thinking around the work, deepen my relationship with that person, or even help me understand or uncover parts of myself that I may not have known.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to take you through a couple rounds. One, I'm going to talk a little bit about like, okay, if this is the kind of connection we want, you know, we wanted to spend a little bit of time exploring what is it that I'm going to connect to this summer, right? Because like my hope for all of you, it's the same hope for us, is that we will in fact be able to unplug a little bit, right? And that most of our connecting work this summer is going to be connecting to myself, connecting to my loved ones, connecting to things that feel fun and nourishing, or, you know, just summer. But we do have a hope, like, you know, I think there is this moment, you know, where we have a pause before September starts, where we can seek out a professional connection that has these same qualities, that are helpful, that are honest, that are engaging, that are fulfilling, sustainable, and motivating. The problem is that there is a lot demanding our attention right now, right? Like I find myself unsure sometimes about how to set a goal for what I'm going to connect to this summer. What is it that I'm going to grow in this summer? How am I going to keep myself motivated to focus on something and arrive at September better than I was today? I mean, I'm still going to wear soft pants, but maybe I'll be better at teaching in my soft pants. So when I think, first of all, like what to stay connected to, you know, one, we want to stay connected to each other. Like Maggie was saying, in a lot of ways, my friendships have deepened in this 3 months of, you know, I'm texting more, I'm doing Marco Polos, I'm staying connected to people in a way that I didn't before. I'm kind of an isolator. So, you know, when I do my work day with people, I'm kind of happy sometimes to just be with my family at night. And now I'm not. Now I'm ready to get out of here.
Go be with
and connect with other people. So yes, we want to talk about connecting with each other, and Maggie's going to come back to this and revisit ways to do that. Of course, we want to stay connected to the things that feed us, whatever that is. I'm realizing in this pandemic that I don't have any hobbies. I feel like everyone's making sourdough bread. Maggie's like gardening all the time. You know, Maggie's like, what do you want to do with your free time? I'm like, I play video games.
Yep.
It doesn't feel like an inspiring hobby.
That's gonna be our goal.
Like, no.
We should like subtweet that and kind of get a sense of like, what can Kate's hobby be?
Anyway, so I'd like to discover this summer something that feeds me, right? That I would like to do that's not video games or sleeping. The thing that I'd like to spend some time on though today, is the third one that I think is really tricky to figure out, is how do I stay connected to my growth as an educator this summer? Particularly because the world needs us to right now, right? Like we did an incredible job the last 3 months, but the world is asking something of us in the next few months before we start again, which is that we are ready for the challenge ahead, right? Our kids need us to stay a little bit connected to what it is that we're doing. And of course, there's a lot that is pulling on us right now when we're trying to choose what to stay connected to. There's the pandemic, there are the protests and the conversation about race that is finally happening in, I hope, a new way in this country. There's distance learning, there are the demands of our family. And of course, ideally, all of these things are connected. They're not separate from each other. They're not in little boxes. So when I'm thinking about what is it that I'm going to grow in this summer, how is it that I'm going to choose? How am I going to choose what to focus on, what to get better at during the time that I have? You know, anytime I feel like I have to make a choice, I feel this feeling. I feel like I'm 46, almost 47 years old, but honestly, I'm like, how is it possible that I have responsibilities? And so I want to move through that feeling. Like, I don't know if you feel it, but I look at a slide like this, I think about the challenges that we're facing, and I get a little bit of that like flight, fight, or freeze feeling, you know, like I get overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to begin. And if I stay in that feeling and I don't find a way to push through it and connect to something to grow with, then I'm not going to be where I want to be. So I think about choosing what matters, and it brings me back to the first time I really had to become an adult, which was when I became a parent for the first time. And when I became a parent for the first time, feels like a long time ago now. This is like, of course, 3 a.m. or something like that. Just ridiculous.
Oh.
Still, honestly, our boys are up at 3 a.m., so it doesn't really matter. But when I think about when I became a parent, I think about all of the areas of imperfection, right? That I still, like, I think about parenting right now, me now as a parent to my almost 6-year-old and my 3-year-old. And there's so much that I'm not great at that I need to grow into, right? There's a list. Like, I need to work on my patience. I struggle with creative building. Like, I can't, like, anytime my son and I play Legos, I just make like a box. I'm like, here you go, son. And he's like, that's stupid. I'm like, sorry. Sustaining play, right? Like after 2 rounds of hide and seek, I tend to be like, can we stop maybe and go do something else? Finding some food that they'll eat besides cheese, dealing with anger and outbursts, both my own and my children's. Changing things up, I can get in real ruts, and then like consistency with teaching them chores, right? And the list goes long and long and long. There's a long list of things that I need to work on, that I need to get better at. And if I don't take some time to really think about how am I going to focus in, of course, I'm going to feel overwhelmed. I'm going to feel filled with shame and guilt. I'm going to feel like the worst parent alive, and I'm not going to get better at anything, right? I really do think that perfect is the enemy of the good. So whenever I'm confronted with a list like this, you know, what I have to think about is like, on this list, what really matters? Like, some of the stuff on this list is stuff that would be great if I could get better at, but it's not going to have a real impact on my kid's life. And then other things on this list actually really would make me a fundamentally better parent. I think about my eldest. This is when he was 3, but he struggles with perfectionism. So he struggles to like enter into classes, et cetera, and do that kind of stuff. And I struggle sometimes being patient with his struggle, right? So when I look at this list and I think about what's going to have a real impact on my son, on our relationship, on our family, it's not building Legos, right? It's not finding food that they're going to eat. They're fine. They're eating cheese, whatever. It's the things on here like dealing with my patience and becoming more patient. It's dealing with anger and outbursts and teaching my kids to have healthy relationships with those feelings and how to get through those feelings to more powerful things. And so anytime I'm overwhelmed by like a huge list of things that feel so big that I don't know how to move forward, I think it's really important to look at that list and think, what is it that can make a huge difference in my life, in my kid's life? Because those things tend to have ripple effects. And of course, the things that matter are the things that connect us more to each other. So if I think about teaching, there are so many areas of imperfection in my teaching, right? There are so many places where I need to grow. So I am continually educated and awoken to how I need to continue to get better at confronting racism and white supremacy every time, right? Not when it's easy, not when it's comfortable, not when I see where it's doable for me or isn't going to have a bad effect on me, but instead like every time getting better at that. I also suck at record keeping. But you hear the difference between those two things on the list, right? Like record keeping, yeah, that'd be great if I was better at taking notes on the conferences and small groups that I'm working on with my kids. But man, being able to say I am truly an accomplice, I am truly a co-conspirator with my colleagues and my students of color, that's going to have an effect that's much deeper. If I think about differentiating during distance learning, that feels really important right now to learn how to do this summer, because if we have to go back to something like that next year, man, I want to be able to connect to my kids, even if it's through a screen. Whereas essay writing conferences, yeah, you know, that'd be nice to get better at, but it's not going to have as big an effect as others. So one thing we wanted to pause and say is just to, you know, take a moment to reflect. I'm going to give us like 30 seconds here. Maggie gave you 75 seconds, but I'm too impatient. I still have New York energy in me, so I can't give you that much time. I'm going to give you 30 seconds just to think, if you could think of one area in your teaching that you feel like would be worth connecting to this summer, worth growing in, that would have a big impact on yourself, on kids. I think if you can name what that is. If you can't, it's okay. There's no quiz at the end. Yeah, if you want, you could absolutely put it in the chat box. Do you want me to stop sharing so we can look at it? Sure. Yeah, if you feel moved to, you can put it in the chat box. As you're thinking, for me, I think that the work that I'm continuing to learn how to do of becoming an anti-racist is the thing that is on my front burner right now. And I think it's connected to all the other things. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm seeing in embarrassingly newer ways how connected that work is to everything that we do as teachers. And I learned that from so many colleagues. And I knew it before, and I know it more now, right? And I'm just gonna keep moving. So that's the thing that I'm really committed to this summer, is learning how to be more of an accomplice and less of a sort of passive cheerleader. Like, yeah, you go. And instead sort of me being able to step out and be more active in that role. Yeah.
Some things that I'm noticing coming up in trends as people are kind of really sitting and saying, what is it? Justice and equity work is coming up. Assessment, like how do we really, it's been interesting, right? That many of us kind of went to pass fail or, you know, no grades at the end. And most of us kind of skipped the national test. And so also too, it's interesting to think about, how are we really assessing where kids are? And somebody put it in the chat of differentiation, you know, especially if we return, Sarah, you know, especially if we return to the hybrid model. And honestly, I feel like some of the differentiation I've been thinking about in the last three months, I think is really going to help when I go back into real time. And then there was really nice work around focusing and connecting around like relevance. What's really the big, important, relevant work in reading and ELA?
Yeah, you know, I think as I'm making these plans to decide what is it I'm going to connect to, what is it I'm going to grow in, the one thing that we'd like to really encourage, you know, especially right now, but always, is, you know, circling back to that idea of how important connection is. That if my goal isn't going to have the effect of me, my school, of us being more connected with students and their families, then I don't think it's worth spending a lot of time on right now, right? Because right now, we see, being far away from our students, that the only thing that matters is how connected they feel to us.
Yeah.
Cornelius Minor, a hero of ours, a friend of ours. He was a friend, now he's a hero because he's the most amazing rock star, brilliant person in the universe, said something in a Zoom call to us recently where he said, what he's seeing is how much these crises that we're facing right now as a nation are revealing kids and parents' relationship to school, right? That it's uncovered. It's not new. It's not like the kids had a great relationship with us and now this pandemic happened and now they don't. That instead, because we're facing this, we're seeing the kids and the parents who have never had a very strong connection to our classrooms. And that's a powerful moment to stop and take stock and be like, how can we be better at making sure that every kid, whether they're in our room, where sometimes it's easier to see, to pretend that kids are connected, right? Oh, they're in the room and they're kind of compliant and they're kind of doing their assignments. I guess everything's all right. Yeah. And what we're noticing with this pandemic is everything was not all right. It was not. If the kids aren't still with us, right? If parents aren't still feeling connected and like we're communicating and close to us and on board, like we're partners together, then things weren't okay before either. So whatever that goal is that I choose, I just can't stress enough how important that I think that the ultimate goal has to be right now, that at the end of this, we are going to be more connected to each other than we were before these things happened. And if I'm spending time and energy on things that aren't going to connect me, I want to question that, and I want to trouble it and be like, is that where I should spend my limited, sad amounts of time, energy, brain power, etc. Okay, these are wonderful examples.
Kate and Maggie,
Yeah.
you had one person I just caught my eye from Andrew Deacon. It was just like asking how to lead staff to an understanding that some of the most mundane things we do in the classroom actually perpetuate racism and discrimination of disenfranchised populations. So how do we confront those strategies head on?
I mean,
it's good just to pause and hear that, right?
What I keep coming back to is, and keep learning from people who've been doing this work for a long time, is that all learning towards becoming more anti-racist starts from internal work that then moves quickly towards action. That it's not enough just to try to get, diverse books in my classroom. It's not enough just to switch out one whole class novel for one by a person of color, right? It's that it has to start with, like Andrew's saying, an awareness and awakening of, these small things, like Brent put in the chat box too, that he wants to focus on assessment and how assessment can be racist or anti-racist, right? Like everything we do has an effect on our connection to all our kids. The choices we make for distance learning can be racist and anti-racist. And of course, what I notice is that when every time I take a step towards anti-racism, I'm better for all my kids, right? It's not that I'm only better for my Black and brown kids. I'm better for all my kids because I've become a better teacher in that process. The same way that when Maggie and I started working for the project and learned ways to help students with IEPs, it's not like we just became better at teaching students with IEPs. All of a sudden, we were better at teaching all students because we knew something fundamentally more effective than that work we knew before. So if I pause there for a moment, one thing I want to say is, sounds like a lot of people, I see different things like distance learning, anti-racism. Of course, there's lots of those things that go together. But if I pause for a moment, whatever goal you choose, I want to talk a little bit before I pass the baton to Maggie around how we can get started with that goal, right? Because it's one thing to say, this is my goal, I want to get better at this. It's another thing to create a plan that's going to help us to move forward. So I feel often when I start, I have a goal. Here's a big one. So here's my goal for the summer. I want to become increasingly anti-racist in my actions, in my communication with all people. Maggie's holding up a great book to get started for people who are asking for a book recommendation for Sarah and others. This book is Anti-Racist by Tiffany Jewell. It's a fantastic book. So as soon as I name a big goal, the next thing I feel is, I don't know if you can see the last panel in this comic. There we go. But it says, I want to be successful. Success is up here. There's effort. And then you can't see the little bubble here, but he goes, oh no. Right? Like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to become more anti-racist, or I'm going to become an amazing connector through distance learning. But then all of a sudden the task seems really intimidating. And I see that in the chat boxes, even right now, right? How do I start? What do I do? How do I begin? So I want to pause for a moment and just think a little bit about how to work on what matters to us once we've set a concrete goal. So the first thing is that you have to focus in and name it as a goal, right? To say, I want to get better at blank, and to know why that matters to you, right? To have a real reason for doing it. I think anytime my reason for doing something is because my administration told me to, it's going to be hard to motivate across 2 months of learning that's going to be quite independent this summer. And then the next piece is to take baby steps. And, Maggie and I, working at the Reading and Writing Project, we have a lot of experience with progressions, learning progressions, right? This idea that you can't get immediately better at something. You can't go from not not great to amazing in one step. You have to be able to name where am I in this evolution, in this goal that I have, and what is my very, very, very next step that I can take, right? Otherwise, I risk making mistakes that are big. I risk getting burnt out. I risk becoming demoralized. I risk feeling like, well, this isn't going to work because I'm not seeing any movement. So if I think about my goal to become increasingly anti-racist, there are progressions out there for me, right? Where I can take a look and say like, okay, at the beginning of our work, we're active allies. And I can look at these actions, these things that people can do and think, are these things I'm doing? Or are these things I could get better at? Maybe I'm doing all of these things and I'm like, oh, cool, I'm totally an active ally. And then I can look at the accomplice list and think, okay, are there things here? Am I doing all of these things? Mm-hmm. Can I take on a couple of these, right? I'm not going to take on the whole pyramid, but what can I do that's a baby step right now to get started? Or am I ready to become a co-conspirator? Am I doing those things? Is there more that I can do? There's another one that was floating around.
Yep. Britt Hawthorne, get that name down as well, is an incredible anti-racist educator and has an unbelievable Patreon channel that you can support. And also, if you just followed us on Instagram and you don't follow Britt, please do. She's incredible.
Incredible. And once especially if you're on Twitter, it's a great place to find lots of resources that you might be asking for, certainly for distance learning, for anti-racism work, for all the work that you're talking about in the chat box. What's beautiful about Twitter, if you haven't joined up, if you're not in already, is that you follow one person like Britt Hawthorne, and then you follow who she follows, you follow, and all of a sudden you have a nice library of people to study from. There's another one that's been out there from Surgery Redesign that a lot of people have put out too, just as a different version of a progression of growth for this goal I have, right? Where am I? Am I in the fear zone? Am I in the learning zone? Am I in the growth zone? So anytime I have a huge goal that's really important, it matters, but is also quite intimidating and overwhelming to take on all at once, right? It's not something I can achieve in a day. I've got to name why it matters to me, and then I got to figure out what is the progression? What are the baby steps that I'm going to take? And then I need to take them. The next thing then, though, is that I need to get help and I need to keep going. So I need to have some community. For myself, in my work, I need to have accountability partners who are mostly other white educators who are trying to push themselves to be better and more active so that they can call me on the mistakes I'm making. I can talk through the sort of messy, clumsy thoughts I'm having. We need a community of people, and Maggie's going to talk more in a minute about where to find those communities, how to keep those communities going in the summer, but we need help. I can't do it on my own. Boy, left to my own devices, I come up with some weird, bad ideas, right? I need people to help me. And then the last is to keep going. You know, I think any goal that's worth having, any change that's worth making, takes persistence and consistency. It's sort of horrible, but there's so much that's just about taking the next foot forward and keeping at it. This is a meme that I haven't been able to find a citation to, so if anyone has a citation for this, please let me know. But people have been posting on social media about the activism work that's happening right now in the world. And I think it helps us to see what our job is right now, all of us. You know, some are posting on social media, some are protesting in the streets, some are donating silently, some are educating themselves, some are having tough conversations with friends and family. A revolution has many lanes. Be kind to yourself and to others who are traveling in the same direction. Just keep your foot on the gas, right? And whatever your goal is, whatever it is that we're trying to do to connect more to our kids, to connect more to our families, focus on it, take baby steps, get help, and then just keep your foot in the gas. And before long, in my experience, you'll find real progress.
Just to round out the resources too, someone dropped this in the chat as well, but Lorena Herman, the anti-racist teacher, it's a reading instruction workbook. And you can find this as well as lots of other information on their website, multiculturalclassroomconsulting.com. That's definitely a third shout out for the powerful list of resources that accompanies kind of your connection that you're seeking. I'm about to round out the hour. And so, you know, taking stock of, we started with just the importance of connection and grounding this in that, and then exploring, you know, what does it mean? What does it feel like to be connected? And when do those connections help us or prevent us from growing? Kate's talked about how do we make decisions around what to connect to so that we're focused and we're able to do deeper work, and then thinking about that on a progression of where's my starting place, what's my next step. I'd love to close with the how, right? Like, how can we think about keeping connected to our work and each other? This is newer thinking for me because I can't run workshops or talks without separating myself from what has been happening the past three months. And so when we're thinking about connections, one way to keep connected to each other and our work is to use this summer to explore and practice digital connections. You know, some part of next year most likely will be virtual. And I know that Sandra Potts, you had put in the chat box that, you know, some of us are going to be beginning next year with a group of kids in a digital environment. And what happens to those connections when we can't rest on those relationships that we built in the physical world beforehand? And so, Sandra, this is where I want to talk about that now, right? That we can use this summer to explore and practice digital connections. Because we know if you're a part of this organization, CRA and ILA, and you know as a reading and writing teacher that it is powerful to do the work that you then teach, right? If we're running reading workshops, we're readers. If we're running writing workshops, we write. And so if we're going to be running digital communities, let's get digital. And so we want to have that same approach, that same playful practitioner approach with tech. So some suggestions, I have a running list that I'm keeping. Perhaps this summer you take a webinar. The Equity Institute is offering fantastic webinars. The Racial Literacy Institute with Dr. Sonia Cherry-Paul and Tricia Barvia, that's also has gone online. And so one thing we might want to do is put ourselves in the driver's seat and just feel what it feels like to be in that environment with this subtle ear out for, and so how is that going to help me teach better? Maybe it's an online book club. Maybe you have monthly book clubs, and maybe those can start happening around a fire 6 feet apart, but you also might say, can we do a session or two digitally, whether that's meeting together on Zoom or FaceTime or Google Meets. Maybe it is just practicing online dialogue around a piece of literature, because again, that's going to be really good intel to have when we ask kids to do the same. Sandra, I've been thinking a lot about this. I made a joke about TikTok, right? But we're reading and writing teachers, so we know the power of mentor texts. So there are communities that are started and established all the time when people have never physically met. There are relationships that start over social online communities without a physical relationship. I've watched one TikTok famous star go from like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
Be proud. Be proud, baby.
It's community. I've seen her go from like 100 to like 700,000 people in the matter of a couple of weeks. And what's holding them together is community. It's like going and sharing online. So what does it feel like to be vulnerable online? How do Facebook groups start? How do Instagram hashtags work? How do TikTok communities begin? And so as we join those, we can also study them as a mentor text, because I do, Sandra, I think we should talk more about this if you're interested interested, I'm really interested in it, that I think we connect more digitally than we think we do, or have more of those types of groups, that if we study them like a reader or a writer, we could learn some moves. Perhaps this is the time to take an online writing workshop or join an online writing community. I've been toying around with wanting to take online language courses and take the Spanish that I learned in Honduras one summer and like bring it back. And so that's that first piece of not only will that help our connections, it will also help us learn how to transfer that to our students in the fall, but also 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The second thing I've been thinking about of ways to keep connected is just, again, seek out connections that both affirm us, but also push us. And it goes back to that thing of when I go back 5, 8 years on Twitter timeline, I felt like a lot of my connections were affirming and very like, yes. And so I'd get in this feedback loop of yes, 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 me. And there's so much that we can miss when our connections are solely affirmative. And I would encourage you to think about a couple categories, like what debates could you enter physically or online around work, right? That would help you practice connecting with others where you may not see eye to eye on. I'm thinking phonics or whole class novels or grammar. I'm thinking testing or school funding. But thinking about, can I develop and diversify my connective points with people that may see things differently, because I really want my students to do the same. I want to find ways to pierce that, what's it called? That bubble that you're in? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, say the
bubble,
the silo.
You're just in that like
silo.
Yes. It's 9 o'clock. I can't believe I'm not in my pajamas right now. Oh my goodness. Okay. So then it could also be life. Like maybe that's something. It could be politics or policing or climate. It could be culture, like music or food or art. But is there a way that we can explore our connections over the summer that may take turns into disrupting or agitating, but in a way letting that dissonance deepen our connections? A third is, I don't know about you, but I feel like I've returned or reconnected to my roots in a way. You know, I've had to kind of fumble my way through homeschooling just like the rest of you. And I have like a teaching degree and some teaching experiences, but oh my gosh. But I found myself returning to inquiry and project-based learning and writing process and independent reading and finding, because somebody had written in the chat, Fran, it might have been you, that in this time we've been able to focus on less stuff, right? There has been this kind of narrowing of like, what's really important. And for me, that could be connecting with things that we may have forgotten when we're in the hubbub of teaching and life. And so kind of thinking about, what have you rediscovered? What have you reconnected with? Is there a way to foster that connection? For me, I'm going to go back to some inquiry work and some writing process work. And so those are 3 ways that we might do that. You know, I got to leave with tips because this is like good work, and this is going to get hard. Like, I've been practicing having connections online that are a little tricky sometimes. And for me, I hate even the idea that someone is mad at me. Like, if Kate even looks mildly stressed, I'm like, is it me? Is it me? Is it me?
Meanwhile, she's mad at me a lot, so I get to practice.
It's true.
I'm able to practice that.
It's true. So, you know, thinking about like, you're going to practice this and sometimes something might come up. So a couple of tips. One is just quality over quantity. I think you've thought about that too, of when you're thinking about what you want to spend your time deepening your connections or pursuing connections or agitating, even disrupting some connections. Really, it's less snorkeling and more scuba diving. Do you like that?
It's good. That's right.
It's surprising for being up since 5. Well done. You talked about this, analog and digital. You know, we are kind of on digital overload, and sometimes when my friends say, let's get together on Zoom, I'm like, absolutely not. I'm zoomed out. but thinking about where can there be picking up the phone and calling, or sitting 6 feet away, and digital connections, scheduling them. You know, like scheduling when are we going to talk again, where we can see each other's faces? When do we want to do that next time? For me, my connections will fade because
to always plan the next meeting in the meeting.
Yes.
Yep.
Saying like, how are we going to revisit this? And I think that then helps with follow up and follow through, because connections are only as strong as our next meeting, whether it's physical or digital. And remembering self-care. You know, again, like I've been having some connections or exploring some connections that I've put off to the side. And sometimes I find myself really uplifted, and sometimes I find myself, oh my goodness, this can't be where we are in this conversation. And honoring the times to disconnect, or just connect with self, or just connect with one student as opposed to the whole class. That these connections should fuel you, as opposed to just being a one-way a one-way road into a drain. What I didn't think through is a poetic closing. I did not think through.
Well, I have a final thought.
Do you have
if
a
you
final
want to think
thought?
of a poetic closing,
Do
while
it.
I do a final thought. So
Do
the thing that really strikes me, because of course Maggie and I don't talk to each other because we co-parent and work separately and etc. But as I was listening to Maggie, like the aha for me at the end here is this moment of like, do you remember those things?
She's gonna do it.
I'm
here for this.
Where you would lift a flap and at the top would be like a zebra and the bottom would be like a elephant. Those toys, those flip books, anywhere you'd make weird creatures that went together. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. But like the thing that strikes me is whatever your goal is that you chose. So like my little bit of like choosing something that matters, right? A beautiful thing to do this summer would be to choose a goal that really matters, that can have a real effect on kids. And then put yourself in the role of students in an online environment to learn about that thing, right? So that you can both experience what our kids are experiencing as they go online, as you learn how to get better at that really important goal that you had. And that's really exciting for me. So I'm like, okay, so I know I want to be more anti-racist. So now I need to put myself in digital environments where I'm learning how to do that, so that I'm also thinking about how to be a student in that role. That's my final thought. Now Maggie's going to come with poetry in a moment, I bet.
I mean,
poetry. It's going to be poetry.
In my early 20s,
Haiku,
I
spoken word.
fancied myself
You were?
Poet of
You
sorts. I think that to be honest, sometimes getting in front of the screen, right, and working in this way before I'm kind of like, okay, I'm a little nervous, I'm a little shy, I'm tired, but every single time when it goes well, which means I feel connected to you, you feel connected to me, right? You feel connected to your students feel connected to you. Your family reunion was canceled, but you got together on Zoom anyway, right? These connections lighten us and give us energy. And I'm so grateful for the energy boost that you have just given to me at the end of a long day. I don't want to underestimate how grateful I am to be connected to a community of teachers and learners. And thank you so much for the opportunity and you spending some time folding your laundry and hanging out with us this evening. And for the Connecticut Reading Association and everybody behind the scenes, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Kate. You are both just so appreciated for all of our bringing us to a new thinking, new deeper understanding of what is important about staying connected, how to be activists. You had a few responses that I would love to say, just repeat from the chat session. The first one was from Mary Howard, and she said, "This is a beautiful list as it reminds us that working to become anti-racist has many paths, and there's no one way." And then from Jessica Barone and Brent Gilson is joy and connection, real, authentic purpose. Just love it. And Brent was, yes, next year I just want to reconnect with the basics, books and reflection and joyful conversation.
I love
Amen.
that. I love that.
So we just wanted to mention from CRA and ILA, and if anyone knows Kwame Alexander, which I'm thinking everyone does, everybody, and he probably connects with you too. Very jealous. So as you may already know, ILA is partnering with Newbery medalist Kwame Alexander on how to raise and teach anti-racist kids.
Yep.
And it's happening this Thursday, June 18th at 7 o'clock. So 7 p.m. that is. So the virtual town hall will be offered through Zoom and Facebook Live. A recording of the event will be available through ILA's YouTube channel the next day. And you have special guests, ready? So it's Kate and Maggie's best friend, Cornelius Minor,
Yes.
Karen Parsons, Tiffany Jewell, who you mentioned, right? She's in our chat now. Pam Allen, Lit World,
Great.
Lit Life, Dr. Noni Thomas Lopez, and then Kwame, along with the ILA Vice President, Dr. Stephen Peters, will deliver the opening remarks. And as valued members of the ILA community, which we all are since we're CRA members, we hope you can join them on Thursday. And just basically, please spread the word if you can. The more voices and people that hear, the better off we are. And so it's, again, how to raise and teach anti-racist kids this Thursday at 7 o'clock, and it's actually an hour and a half, 7 to 8:30. But it is on the ILA website, so you can find it there, and the hashtag is Lit Black Lives and hashtag ILA equity. So we hope to see you on Thursday night again. Kate and Maggie, thanks again.
Thank you so much, everybody.
So good to see you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Kristen, before you sign off,
Yeah.
all of the chat, is there a way to copy it? I think there is. And then we can send it to Kate and Maggie.